The setup process was incredibly easy. So it allows you to try different things with targeting, with pricing, with ad versions, and that was extremely beneficial.
Chris Cunningham, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about your campaign with Vibe.co. So you're a third-party candidate in a senatorial race in Nevada, and it was your first time advertising on streaming TV. So first, if you could just, before we get into all the details of your campaign, tell us a little bit about who you are, what brought you to television advertising and to Vibe more specifically, and just give us a little background.
Sure. So yeah, my name's Chris Cunningham. I'm a registered libertarian here in Nevada. I work in sort of software sales, digital marketing, e-commerce by day, but I ended up running this political campaign for United States Senate. The primary reason was to secure ballot access for the party. So that way they're able to run presidential candidates, they're able to run statewide candidates and down ballot candidates.
I think it would be really helpful to understand the goals and then being able to stay on ballot for a few years once you hit a certain threshold, that kind of thing.
With plurality voting, if you have more than two choices, then generally the additional choices may sort of alter what happens with those bigger two choices, referring to the Democratic and the Republican Party. So for me, my goal is to preserve, essentially it is to preserve ballot access. I was there to be sort of a statewide hedge if the presidential candidate could not fulfill the ability to get 1% of the overall congressional vote in Nevada, which now that the election's over, that was around 14,000 votes or so. And that's what ended up happening. I ended up clearing it. I ended up getting just shy of 21. Presidential candidate, unfortunately, only got maybe around 9,000. So I was able to 3.5x that number. And I definitely think Vibe was kind of a big part of that. But that's just sort of the thing is, as a libertarian, the odds of you winning outright, and again, I don't have the money or the resources that, these politicians have on hand, $12 million in spend. I'm coming in with a budget, on paper, I reported the FEC around 15,000, but really I had maybe, 4 to 5,000 to play with. And that ultimately I just decided to use on a Vibe campaign.
What became really interesting was that you were able to optimize that campaign and kind of move your spend and move your targeting to match what you were seeing. And we'll get into that in a second. But first, I just wanted to hear a little bit more about how you chose Vibe, because I know you spoke with several local news networks and broadcasters in your area for a linear media buy. And I remember you got sticker shock. Tell us a little bit more about that.
I had a campaign manager, shout out to Joe Michael, and he was like, hey, we only have limited funds. We need to do some sort of TV advertising. So, I ended up talking to a couple different TV channels in Nevada around the Clark County area, which is Nevada, Las Vegas. It just didn't make sense because on the one hand, if you want to hit local news, then you're looking at a minimum of $1,000 to like $10,000 for a 30-second spot. And these are discounted spots for politicians. So that ultimately is what kind of steered me away because it's either you go down the route of taking the lowest cost spots possible, or you can be a little bit more strategic and target the ad buys as well for a similar price.
Before you even started the campaign, what were you hoping to see? What were you going to be laser focused on?
The goal essentially for me, being one of the younger Senate candidates, I'm 32. I think legally you have to be 30 to run for a Senate seat, was just to kind of get younger voters engaged. And I kind of knew it was going to be somewhere between 10 to 15,000 votes. Looking back now, it was 14,000. So I wanted to make sure that I could just not only be as impactful as I could locally in Las Vegas, where I'm based out of. Nevada, just very quickly, it's a really interesting state where about 70% of the state lives in the surrounding area around Clark County, Las Vegas, Henderson area. And then you can even go 9-10 hours north upstate and everyone's kind of scattered. But there's two main counties, it's Clark and Washoe. So I kind of knew that I had to have a physical presence in those two big counties and figure out a way to reach those individuals on the fringe. So that was just kind of my personal goal, knowing that I had to kind of achieve a specific vote number to.
That's great to hear. And so now we can get into what that looked like. So if you could just tell me a little bit more about what the campaign setup was like for you. how you thought about targeting, how you thought about optimizing with the Vibe platform, since you can optimize in real time.
The setup process was incredibly easy. And I remember too, the thing that I either just didn't catch or just didn't see the very first time that I used Vibe was the strategy type of feature where you can just break out individual sort of A and B tests or different, essentially as it is, a different strategy off of one primary campaign. So it allows you to try different things with targeting, with pricing, with ad versions. And that was extremely beneficial because I knew that what was going to work for Las Vegas, being an entertainment capital of the world, would probably not work for somebody that just likes to, be out on their ranch, looking up at the stars in northern Nevada. So I was good to be able to break that out geographically and then being able to kind of be strategic. So I think over the course of the campaign, I think I had close to about four different strategies running.
Okay.
And that was an extremely beneficial feature. I just had to be very strategic with how the money was being spent. So it wasn't like it was like a month or 2 month long campaign where we could wait a week and analyze. We had to be analyzing it daily. And I think the crazy and unprecedented thing about this election cycle is that I think across the country, everybody was voting early and everybody was voting kind of a combination of in-person versus mail. So I was getting an ad professionally kind of done. We ended up going over to Reno and a friend of ours was filming something and it was good. I was also allergic to their dog, so I didn't look the best when I was doing it. I ended up kind of piecemealing my own ad together and I just uploaded it. And it was very simple. As long as you follow the guidelines that you get from Vibe, it was a seamless process to get it up and running. And then comparing it with these daily voter turnout numbers to kind of get a gauge of, should we be pumping this harder on weekends?
That's a great way to kind of measure that kind of political campaign, is to see where are the voters, where should I hit, and during what times of the day, what time of the week, etc., especially on such a short campaign. I know that last time we talked, you mentioned the pixel installation as being really helpful as well to monitor web traffic. I think you saw a bump in your SEO too.
Yes. I figured, hey, you know what, why don't I just do this?
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily driving traffic for them to buy a product, but at least I'll get an understanding of what channels on Vibe are driving traffic to the site, so I know what's performing well at least. And given that it was such a short campaign, that was extremely beneficial to know that there were maybe 2 or 3 breakout channels that were really a catalyst for driving that traffic. So that was incredibly beneficial.
And so then we're getting to the results. So 2 weeks go by, you're furiously campaigning, you got boots on the ground in some spots, but then you're really relying on the reach of streaming television for some of those, like you were saying, 9-10 hour away, more rural areas. And I think you mentioned that those are the ones that came in real strong for you. Is that right?
Yeah. So when we ran the campaign, we had 4 different campaigns, generally speaking. We had a Clark County one, was entertainment, mainly Vegas, Henderson area. We had an entertainment-based campaign that went to Carson City and a specific rural county. We were just trying to see if we could make a dent in, called Esmeralda, where there's only a few hundred people that live there. Going to the rural counties, I was pulling anywhere between 1.5 to 3, sometimes even 4% in those rural areas. And so they're scattered throughout the state, but the impact there was definitely beneficial from the Vibe campaign, because I know we had a few volunteers in 1 or 2 counties, but there's 13 counties in Nevada. So really, 9 to 10 of those counties were heavily reliant on just the Vibe campaign. And I'd say consistently in maybe 7 or 8 out of those 10, we were pulling way above sort of that average that we would see with Clark County.
That's super interesting. And hopefully that's something that you can leverage, next time. So now for results, let's get into it a little bit deeper. So I know you mentioned you had a huge SEO boost.
My name is just incredibly common. If you just search Chris Cunningham, and this is what's really crazy, there's like a UK video producer that's always been there. And I didn't expect it. That wasn't even my goal. I mean, my goal is more focused on the political campaign, but this whole process did actually boost the SEO for me to just be on the front page of Chris Cunningham, which is incredibly crazy. Like I think, Christopher's a common name. Chris is, and then Cunningham, I think, is one of the top 15 most common surnames, at
Okay.
least in the United States. The fact that these combined efforts just were giving me traffic from people just searching for Chris Cunningham is actually pretty crazy.
Yeah.
To see that the campaign had that much of an impact for the Google algorithm to reward me like that.
So there was SEO, but then there was also votes, right? So again, it's kind of a special situation being a third party candidate, but I know you were able to secure ballot access for your party for the next couple of years, right?
Correct. Yes, for 2 years.
Then I think you mentioned a cost per vote that was pretty outstanding as well.
Yeah, it's unofficially somewhere between. It's around the $4 range. We completely shattered the two major party candidates that ended up, putting in millions of dollars into the race. And we did affect the race. Luckily, my vote total of the 21,000 wasn't enough to sway the outcome. And even the other third party candidate who I was trying to beat, I basically matched her with the exception of maybe being short about 300 or 400 votes to her. So I thought that was really interesting, just doing 1-2 week campaign.
Yeah.
On Vibe, and then just, it's taken her 20 years to get to 21,000 votes, and I can come in out of the gate and basically be up to par with some of the other long running third party candidates in the state.
I gotcha. All right. Best of luck to you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.